Great men of history have fallen out of favor by historians. However, a really interesting great man of history is Philippe Petain. He was one of the most interesting figures in modern history, going from obscurity to military hero to traitor of France in the span of his lifetime. He first rose to prominence as the savior of France in World War I. You can see him right here with General Haig, Foch, and Pershing. A lot of his military strategies, they were able to win the war. But then from his hubris and his ego, he goes and he becomes the dictator of Vichy France after the Germans conquer France in World War II. By this point, he's in his 80s and his puppet regime was fully controlled by the Germans. And he really went from a hero who saved France from the Germans in World War I to fully collaborating, working with the Germans, and being their puppet in World War II. Obviously, the Germans would lose the war and he would lose the war. And so then he was actually sentenced to execution. However, it ended up being life in prison because of his old age, and he would live to be 94 years old and pass away 5 or 6 years after the war had ended. I just think it's fascinating to think about this figure among many of the other great men of history who may have been good, they may have been bad, but they definitely had an effect on history. And it's really interesting to see how this guy went from a hero to a traitor in such a short time period.